Welcome everyone to our BFL42 press conference. Joining us today for the presser from left to right, we have our BFL featherweight champion, Jeremy Kennedy. To his left is our Battlefield welterweight champion, Curtis Harry, who defends his title for the first time on Saturday night. And the challenger to his left is Chris Anderson. And then to his left is Battlefield bantamweight Nick Gainey. All right, we'll jump right into it. First question to Chris. Chris, you've been able to break down your opponents fairly easily with your pace and volume of punches in the past. Do you think you're going to have an edge in this fight, especially in the later rounds?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the longer the fight goes, it'll probably go in my favor. I start a bit slow and finish each round strong and get stronger and stronger until my opponent wilts away. Then I think he's a really strong starter too, so yeah, I think that's how it's going to go.
All right, next question is for Curtis. Curtis, do you feel that Chris is the most dangerous when he's on his feet? Is the game plan heading into this one to close the distance and take him down?
I don't know if he's most dangerous on his feet. He's shown to have good stand-up and good. He's well-rounded. He's got good ground and pound. So I don't know if he's most dangerous on his feet, but I feel like I'm prepared for the dangers that he presents standing and the dangers that he presents on the ground. I feel like I have the answers for it. So I guess not really.
Jeremy, this one's for you. You've been out of action a little while now, 15 months. Can you update us on your health and when fans can expect you back in the BFL cage?
Yeah, it's been a long 15 months, but I'm healthy. I'm good to go again. I don't want to dwell on the last 15 months. I had a bunch of bad luck, right? Fights falling through, back-to-back injuries and stuff like that. But it's just time to start thinking of the future and the fights that are going to happen. And yeah, so I think May 7th is going to be the next fight. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Curtis, Chris, his last fight, it was an absolutely dominating performance over David Perron. Did you see anything in that fight, though, that you think you could exploit that gives you confidence going into Saturday night?
I didn't actually get to see the fight. I fought right after him against Ash to get the belt. So while he was fighting, I was getting ready. But yeah, I don't know. I heard it was a good performance, and so yeah, I don't know. I didn't see it, so I can't really say that I saw anything that would help me or whatever. But
do you see just anything generally in his game
that I can exploit?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's certain things. I guess that's part of what my whole game plan for the last few months have been built around. But I feel like I'm the more explosive competitor. But yeah, we'll see on Saturday night.
This question is for both Chris and Curtis. I'll ask Chris first. You guys have fought in the past, amateur days. You guys were both fairly green to the sport at that point in your career. You guys have both amassed a great record coming up to this fight, both undefeated as pros, some outstanding performances. Just talk about your progression individually as yourself, not the other person, but as yourself. How have you seen yourself grow as a fighter from that fight till now? How have you seen him grow then?
Microphone.
You know what? Yeah, he's gotten steadily better. I think every fight he gets a lot more crisper, a lot cleaner. He's finishing guys quickly, and you know what? I think that he's had steady progression, and I've come leaps and bounds since our last fight. Because I was pretty new when we first fought back in 2012. I only had a couple months training. I was still smoking cigarettes, and I never took any martial arts like wrestling or boxing, kickboxing, none of that. So, yeah, I was pretty brand new to the sport at the time, even though I had 4 fights. So, yeah, I've come a long way since then, and so has he, so it'll be a good fight.
Curtis, I guess both yourself and Chris.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with that. I think, I don't know if I've been steady and he's been leaps and bounds, but whatever. But I feel like we've both definitely progressed. I mean, it's funny, I watched that fight back a little while ago, and you can still see like the base of us is like the same kind of similar styles, but just the technique, the evolution, kind of the add-ons that we've put onto our styles have it's just like a whole another thing. I saw some things that I was doing and it was like almost embarrassing. Like at this point now, that fight was actually a big fight for me. The two fights that I had before him, I won quickly with submissions. And it just kind of put my mind like in the like assuming that that's just how it would go from then on out and whatever. And so I went in a little overconfident in that aspect. And when it didn't work out, I was kind of surprised. And then so since that fight, that fight, just because it didn't work out in my favor, it forced me really to like evaluate what I was doing with my training, what holes did I actually have that I kind of maybe was ignoring before, and it's really helped me to evolve since then.
All right, next question is for Nick. Nick, you're facing Jamie Siraj on May 7th for that bantamweight title. Jamie's been going off a little bit on social media since your last fight. He wasn't happy with the decision because this is a rematch. Does that give you any extra motivation going into this fight?
No, it doesn't give me any extra motivation. I already have all the motivation I need from my teammates and family.
Okay, next question is for Chris. Chris, you had mentioned at some point that you would have liked to have stood more with Curtis in your first fight. Is wrestling what you've been concentrating most on this camp so you can defend the takedown and keep this fight on its feet?
I wouldn't say I worked on it the most, but yeah, I worked on it quite a bit. Worked a lot of sweeps and jiu-jitsu and stuff like that too. So I think it's good. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna hit the ground on my back at some point. So I've really prepared for that. Getting back up, getting the sweep.
Okay. Jeremy, now that you are back in action, how active would you like to be for the rest of 2016?
I'm getting a late start, starting in May, but by the end of 2016, I would like to probably fight 3 times.
Curtis, I know your last 2 performances ended in not so great fashion for the other guy. Not really how you expected it to go down. I know you're training now Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wise with Eastvan, BJJ, Wally over there. Just explain how that sort of aspect, because I know your stand-up was sort of your bread and butter. How has the ground game sort of evolved since starting with Walter?
Yeah, they've been awesome. Their team there is a super strong team. I was training with a kind of a smaller team before. The coach was great as well there, but the team was a little smaller. Eastvan, it's filled with beasts. I went in there and it was a pretty humbling experience. Showing up and. It's funny, like sometimes now they call me like champ or whatever and then tap me out right after. So it's a funny thing. But yeah, they're awesome. Walter's super enthusiastic as a coach in jiu-jitsu and also even just helping out with my MMA career, it's been great. It's been an awesome place.
Jeremy, you've won 13 fights straight now, dating back to your amateur time in amateur. The goal with you've made it known very well, your goal is to get to the UFC. What types of fights do you think you need to have to get there?
Before all the setbacks and stuff, I was really gunning for a UFC vet, somebody with that strong name value that would push me to that next level. But that was causing a lot of the the fight falling out and stuff like that. And so I think I was just being too picky and trying to be too stubborn, trying to get those kind of fights. And now after 15 months off, I don't really, I don't care who it is, anything like that. I just need a fight. I got to get back into the swing of things. Got to stay active. Got to get relevant again, just whoever it is, just got to whoop their ass and move on to the next one. And hopefully by then I can start looking for that UFC guy again. But right now, it's just getting back in the ring's the number 1 priority.
Nick, you faced Jamie Siraj last year. You won via the decision. Is there anything about his game or skill set that surprised you?
Yeah, he's a little weasel. He doesn't really fight, you know. He just kind of like circles around, and it's funny. You know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but it's his friends telling him, "Yo, you won," but I did the most damage, and that's all he is. He's just a little weasel. So now I know how he fights.
I'll follow up on that a little bit. Is he's been training out east in Montreal for quite a bit right now. Do you think that's gonna change his game up anymore?
No, it's not going to make a difference because it just shows his loyalty to his team. He doesn't really have loyalty, and that's a big thing in martial arts. As a martial artist, you learn to trust your coach, trust your team. So obviously he doesn't trust them, and he went out there to find answers. And you know he's going to learn the hard way. We all did at one point.
Jeremy, you've spent a little bit of time training with Nick in the past. And yeah, he's fighting for that bantamweight pro belt against Jamie. What are your thoughts on the fight? How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I mean, Nick's awesome. You know, he's a wrestling standout, and he's mixed his striking and his jiu-jitsu really well with his wrestling. You know, so he's a handful for anybody in that division. And Jamie, I've heard nothing but good things about him. You know, I've trained with guys who've been around him and trained with him, so I think that's why their fight was so close that last time, because they kind of cancel each other out in a sense in a lot of the aspects. So yeah, I just see that fight going very similar to their first fight, and then I think, you know, yeah, I can't really pick a winner there. I just think it's going to be a nice close fight.
And back to you, just besides yourself, who would you say are the top 245-pound fighters in Canada outside, not in the UFC right now?
Can you say that again?
So besides yourself,
Yeah.
who do you think are the top 245 pounders outside of the UFC in Canada right now? Do you have any thoughts?
No one really. I don't think that. I mean, I'm gonna be the Canadian featherweight that's in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some good guys in the division, but I mean, as to rank them into 1, 2, I see me and Sean at the top, and then that's about it. Really.
In all of Canada?
Yeah, you know,
Okay.
I mean, there's good guys, but none of them stick out to me like they're gonna be the guys that are going to the UFC or anything like that. You know, they're all on my radar, but yeah, none of them stick out to me.
Okay. Nick, as opposed to last time, because this is a title fight, it's going to be a 5-rounder. Do you prepare differently going into what could potentially be a longer fight?
Yeah, we prepare for a 5-rounder now. We have a good game plan, but I don't think it's going to go past the second. I don't see it going past the second. I could even see it finishing in the first. I haven't been happy with my performances the last two performances, and really looking to have another finish here.
Chris, via your social media, I see that you post some videos. Not necessarily all videos that are just highlighting fights, but a lot of it is, you know, you walking on the beach or you in the woods and stuff like that. It seems like it's a lot of mental preparation. How much of that goes into your game for camp-wise?
Quite a bit actually. I like to spend a lot of time in the woods, like by myself. It's like it's cold. You know, you get lonely. And it opens the mind to like new thinking. You know what I mean? And there's no distractions out there. You know, maybe some birds or something. But yeah, I do a lot of that because we can all train hard. You know, everyone's got the skills nowadays, but you need that mental edge, I think, to really be good.
Nick, so Jamie's been asking for this fight, the rematch, ever since you guys faced each other last year. And as we've already touched on, he's been complaining about the decision. What message would you have for him going into this fight?
Nothing. Just going to fight him.
Okay. Curtis, although you're the champ, do you see any extra motivation going into this one because it's about you possibly avenging your only loss?
Not really. I try to stay focused on like reality and that's kind of like emotions and stuff like that and drama, and that's for the fans, and people get excited and riled up about that. Like, what I mean, this is a fight. If it was against him, then that's great. If it was against someone else, then I'd be just as motivated. The belt, avenging a loss, like all these things, they're outside factors that they have nothing to do with the actual fight. So I'm motivated just on my own, and that's just another outside factor for me.
Jer? In your time off, you've been working around from different gyms. Obviously, Revolution was your home. You've done some BJJ head coaching at one place. I know you're now taking over for Christian Allert at Budo MMA in Vancouver. How much does coaching play a role in your game?
It's huge, man. I've really over the last 5-6 months really focused a lot on jiu-jitsu and just getting back to it. That's where I started, in the gi, and then I haven't worn a gi in years, and then I just kind of got back to it and slowed down my game, slowed down my training just to get back into things, and it just made my game so much tighter, and then it opened up a lot of opportunities for me, right? So now I get to teach full time at night and train all day. So it's going to be awesome. It's going to be good.
What can people expect with you as a coach at Budo?
The same thing. I've been teaching for a while now at Scorpion, and it's a bunch of new guys. Like, they're all white belts, fresh black bars, So it's fun starting from scratch and teaching them the way I think the best way is to come up. And and Budo's already established. It's a good gym. I've been there. There's a lot of good guys there, and I'm just excited to be part of it.
Chris, you took 2013 off, and that's when it seemed like Curtis kind of came into, despite the fact that you won your fight, he was the guy that kind of came to the forefront at welterweight and amateur, and then now here in pro. Do you think about that kind of stuff? Does it matter to you that maybe he kind of took a step that you didn't take until now, of course, that he's maybe gained a little bit more recognition? Is that something that you think about going into this fight, or do you just not care about that kind of stuff at all?
No, I don't care for this one. I'm just happy to have the opportunity, and we're gonna find out. We're gonna see who's the best.
Curtis, you're coming off back-to-back wins over Dan Kajic and Ash Mashregi. They were both ranked fighters in the division at the time. What challenges do you see that Chris might present that those two didn't bring to the table?
I think probably, he's definitely a taller fighter. Ash was he's like shorter than me for sure. Dan, I don't know if he was shorter or if he was approximately the same height. I'm pretty sure Chris is taller than me. He's longer fighter. That's one aspect for sure. And then like he was saying, his pressure, right? He's not like explosive and hit hard like Ash. He's not Dan has his attributes as well, but I think Chris is probably his biggest attribute is that pressure that he can put on. But so yeah, I'd say the thing that he brings that they don't would be height and pressure.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about your head coach Blake Lorette and how big he is in terms of training your camp, especially specifically going into this fight.
Yeah, I mean, well, Blake, Blake's the man. He took me from I was a kid who just, I'd never fought in my life, never thought about fighting. I wrestled in high school, and I was just kind of doing martial arts for fun, and then I was doing kickboxing and jiu-jitsu, and I had the wrestling background, and I was training every day, but just to train, I just enjoyed it. And he just kind of looked at me. He's like, why don't you fight? What's going on? What's the hold up? Let's do this. And he's just slowly kind of shaped where I'm at today. Especially he's been there and he's done that kind of thing in the kickboxing world, and to have that kind of experience around me has really helped me with my mentality towards fighting and just in life in general. So yeah, it's been huge, and he's been there since the beginning. So
okay, Chris. Curtis has mentioned in previous interviews that he feels he's a pretty complete fighter, pretty well-rounded. but just hasn't had a chance to display his stand-up skills in some of his fights. Do you think there's a chance that he'll stand with you in this fight?
Yeah, 'cause I'm gonna make him. And yeah, I think for sure. You know, it's an MMA fight. Of course, he's gonna strike. He trains striking. So might lead to a victory. 'Cause once you start falling behind, it's gonna be pretty hard to catch up.
Is there any bad blood between you guys? Because, I mean, you guys both seem pretty composed with each other, and leading up to this fight, do you need to sort of mentally create that bad blood to get inside the cage against each other?
No, you know what? I learned you don't gotta do that. You don't gotta make things tense at the weigh-ins. You don't gotta talk trash and none of that stuff. It's a competition. You know. It's yeah. I think he's a good guy.
Curtis?
Yeah, same. I mean, I think our weigh-in for our first fight, we had a little confrontation or whatever. But I mean, we've both kind of said it.
I was dealing with some outside stuff when I was a little grumpy and decided to take it on.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we've grown since then, and it's the same thing as far as I'm concerned in this sport. It's a sport, and I think most people, when they think of punching and kicking people, they couldn't do it unless they're mad or something. It's like an emotional thing or whatever. But to me, the emotions removed. It's just a business, and this is what we do. So nothing against them, but we're gonna fight.
Curtis, probably your toughest fight. I'm assuming you might say your toughest fight up till now was it the Chris fight?
Yeah, I mean, it's my only loss, so
Right.
I can't really say anything other than that. Yeah.
How important is the mental game during the fight? Like is that something you think about leading up to a fight where you might be able to, I don't know, forcing to quit is a little bit strong, but you know what? Just win some little mental battles during the fight. Is that an aspect that you think about?
Yeah, absolutely. Planting doubt in your opponent can, make them maybe when they physically could, act like they couldn't or something like that. As far as is that going to happen with him, that's up to him. That's out of my control. But I'm going to be putting the pressure on. I'm going to be planting the seeds of doubt, and we'll see how he handles it. But yeah, it's a huge factor.
You guys have been in the division now for 5 years. This is for Curtis as well. It's odd that you don't have any common opponents. You fought Dane and Ash. I don't think you have. Oh, you've got one in 5 years. Sorry, my bad. I guess my question is, who do you think has had the tougher opponents in both amateur and pro?
To be honest, I don't know his whole like track record of opponents. I've had my opponents, he's had his, and we're where we're at right now, right? And it doesn't really matter. We're our next opponent for each other, and we're both going to be tough. I think it's going to be an exciting fight. We were close back then. We've both evolved like massively, I think, in the last 4 years. I can't even barely recognize myself from back then, and it's going to be good.
Okay, Chris, this is the number one ranked matchup across Canada. It's been put out there by media. You don't often see that between two guys with a combined 5 pro fights. How important is it to you that people inside the sport recognize your potential and that you're finally getting some of that well-deserved props from not just here in BC or even in the Lower Mainland, but all across Canada?
Yeah, it don't matter one bit. I'm not astonished by the lights or the cameras or the rankings and none of that stuff. I got my own reasons for doing this, and I'm not. Yeah, it's definitely not the camera and the lights and all that kind of stuff. That's all just tricks and mirrors, I guess. I don't know. It's nothing.
And to Curtis, my last question. You were ranked number 1 in the Battlefield pound for pound list. Do you think there's any welterweights outside the UFC here in Canada that should be ranked ahead of you? Do you understand? Like, not in the UFC yet.
Yeah. I don't know. To be honest with you, I kind of keep to myself. I don't really follow. I'm a fan of mixed martial arts or whatever, but I don't follow like any other leagues or whatever. I'm just busy training and that's it. So I couldn't really, off the top of my head, even think of anyone from Montreal or whatever. As far as BC is concerned, I feel like Battlefield's at the top, and and right now I'm at the top. So I don't know.
Curtis, you've got a strength and conditioning coach now that obviously has done wonders. We saw that strength-wise with your last few opponents, the takedowns and whatnot, the injuries. But I think the reason why you pulled him into your game is cardio-wise, to go into the later rounds. You're now the champion. This is a 5-round fight. Do you think that this is obviously going to be a war? I don't see this going down any way like the last 2 fights where it's like that quick injury. Do you think having Ben in your corner as your strength and conditioning coach will come into play and be a big factor in this fight?
Yeah, it's huge. I think I'm pretty sure I brought him in after my fight with Chris. Just from that feeling tired, I couldn't have expected it. I train hard, I work hard, all this stuff. Like how could I be tired? And I felt it. And then anyways, I've been working with him for like 3 or 4 years, and it's been awesome. I worked with him for my amateur title fight, which was 5 3-minute rounds, and just the difference in energy and ability to keep my strength up through the rounds was huge. So yeah, it's gonna make a difference for sure.
Finally, Jer, you said you'll return May 7th, Battlefield Fight League 43, I guess.
Yeah.
You said you'd fight anyone. When you say that, are you expecting them to bring someone in for you, sort of like the way they did with Matt Dwyer when they were prepping him later in his career with Battlefield, or you'll just literally take anyone?
Yeah, I mean that's what I was meaning. What I was going for last time was trying to get that high caliber UFC vet, high name recognition kind of guy, and it was just too hard. I invested too much into it, and I was letting other fights slip by, and now it's just I don't care whoever really signs that dotted line, right? Just get me back in that cage. That's it.
Great, thanks, gentlemen. We're all done.
Wait, before we finish, guys, let me just do one real quick thing with you guys. So, Curtis and you, sir, Chris, Mr. Henderson, you can put the mic down. There you go.
Okay.
Both you guys come up right in front of the table. So we got that black tee that's on the floor. Chris, if you could just stand up there right in front of that, and then you stand on the other side, and both of you guys just need to do a quick face-off. So both of you guys just look and face each other, get a little bit closer together. Thank you very much. Wait, one more second. Good, and then both you guys face this way for me, and Curtis, just grab your belt for me and put it on your shoulder. Awesome.